Life has a way of testing you when you least expect it. One moment you're celebrating buying your dream house after years of hard work, and the next you're waking up in a hospital bed. 3 months of your life gone in the blink of an eye. That's what happened to me, Alexandra Chen, though my friends call me Alex. I'd spent 10 years building my physical therapy practice from scratch. Started in a tiny rented office, worked 14-hour days, lived on ramen noodles and determination. By 32, I had one of the most successful rehabilitation clinics in Seattle. My specialty was helping accident victims recover and rebuild their lives. Ironic, considering what happened next. The house was everything I'd ever dreamed of, a craftsman-style home in Queen Anne, with a view of the Sound that took your breath away. 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors throughout, and a garden that bloomed year-round. The previous owners had been master gardeners, and I promised myself I'd honor their legacy by learning to tend the roses and hydrangeas they'd so lovingly planted. "You're paying too much," my younger sister Rachel had said when I showed her the listing. "Besides, all that space for just one person. You should get a condo downtown like me." But I'd fallen in love with the house the moment I walked through the door. Maybe it was the way sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, painting rainbow patterns on the walls. Or maybe it was how the old wooden floors creaked in just the right places, like the house was talking to you. Whatever it was, I knew this was home. The day I got the keys, I threw a small housewarming party. Just family and close friends, nothing fancy. Mom and Dad came, of course, though they spent most of the evening fussing over Rachel and her new promotion at the tech company where she worked. "Such a modern girl," Mom said proudly, watching Rachel show off her latest app design. Always thinking ahead, always so practical. I was in the kitchen, arranging appetizers on my grandmother's old serving plates, the only real antiques I owned, when I overheard Dad talking to Uncle Mike. "Alex and her impractical dreams," he sighed, shaking his head. "All this money tied up in an old house. She should have invested it in something sensible, like Rachel does." It stung, but I was used to it. In our family, Rachel was the practical one, the sensible one, the one who always made the right choices. I was the dreamer, the one who took risks, the one they worried about. The accident happened 3 weeks later. I was driving home from the clinic on a rainy Tuesday evening, thinking about the rose bushes I needed to prune that weekend. The last thing I remember was a pair of headlights coming straight at me. Later, I learned that a drunk driver had crossed the median, hitting my car head-on. I woke up to the steady beep of hospital monitors and the smell of antiseptic. My body felt like it was made of lead, and when I tried to move, nothing responded quite right. The doctor explained that I'd been in a coma for 3 months. Multiple surgeries, dozens of procedures, complications they hadn't been sure I'd survive. "You're very lucky," Dr. Harrison said, checking my vitals. "The next few months of rehabilitation will be challenging, but with your background in physical therapy, you understand what's ahead." What I didn't understand was why my parents and Rachel seemed so uncomfortable when I asked about my house. They exchanged glances, changed the subject, made vague comments about taking care of everything. It wasn't until Jenny, my best friend and office manager, visited that I learned the truth. She could barely look me in the eye as she told me what had happened. "Your parents, they got power of attorney while you were unconscious," she said, twisting her hands in her lap. "They said they needed to manage your affairs, pay your bills, handle the insurance." My throat went dry. "What did they do?" Jenny took a deep breath. "They transferred ownership of your house to Rachel. Said it was too expensive to maintain while you were out. Rachel moved in about 2 months ago." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The house, my house. The one thing I'd worked toward my entire adult life. "There's more," Jenny continued, her voice barely a whisper. "They used your insurance payout to pay off the remaining mortgage. Rachel got the house free and clear." I closed my eyes, remembering the rainbow patterns on the walls, the creaking floors, the jargon I barely had time to learn. All gone. Stolen while I lay unconscious, unable to protect myself. "They said it was for the best," Jenny added, reaching for my hand. "That you'd understand once you woke up, that it was the practical thing to do." Practical. There was that word again. The word they'd always used to dismiss my dreams, to justify favoring Rachel. Did they? I had to swallow hard before continuing. Did they at least save my grandmother's plates? The look on Jenny's face told me everything I needed to know. Rachel had a garage sale, she said softly, said she needed to declutter before moving in. Something broke inside me then. Not just my heart, but something deeper and more fundamental. The part of me that had always made excuses for my family's behavior, that had accepted being second best, that had believed deep down they would protect me when it really mattered. Jenny, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. I need you to do something for me. She leaned forward, eager to help. Anything. I need you to find out everything you can about what happened while I was unconscious. Every document they signed, every decision they made. And, I paused, a memory surfacing. The security cameras, the ones I had installed when I bought the house. Find out if they're still recording. Jenny's eyes widened as she understood what I was asking. You think? I think, I cut in, that it's time to be practical. The next few weeks were a blur of physical therapy sessions and secret investigations. My body slowly began to respond to treatment, muscles remembering their purpose, nerves relearning their paths. But while I worked to rebuild my physical strength, Jenny was building something else. A case. The security cameras had indeed kept recording, backing up to a cloud server I'd set up and forgotten about. Hours of footage showing my parents and Rachel entering the house, packing up my belongings, holding the garage sale where my grandmother's plates sold for pocket change. Footage of Rachel redecorating, painting over the walls I'd lovingly chosen, ripping out the rose bushes to install a modern rock garden. But more damning than the footage were the documents. Power of attorney papers signed with suspicious speed, property transfer documents rushed through while I was still critical, insurance money redirected to accounts I'd never authorized. They didn't think you'd wake up, Jenny told me one evening, her voice hard with anger. The doctors were uncertain at first, and they just decided to take everything. I watched my hands grip the hospital blanket, knuckles white with tension. The same hands that had worked so hard to build my practice, to earn every penny that went into buying that house. The same hands that would now have to rebuild my life from scratch. My parents visited the next day, all smiles and false cheer. Rachel wasn't with them. She was too busy with work, they said. Too busy enjoying my house, I thought. We have wonderful news, Mom announced, settling into the visitor's chair. Rachel's company is doing so well. They're talking about making her a partner. That's not why we're here, though, Dad added quickly. We wanted to discuss your rehabilitation plan. The insurance, well, there have been some complications. I studied my parents as they sat in my hospital room, knowing how they avoided direct eye contact. Mom kept smoothing her designer skirt, a nervous habit she'd had since I was a child. Dad was fiddling with his Rolex, the one Rachel had given him last Christmas. Complications. I kept my voice neutral, though my heart was racing. What kind of complications? Well, Dad cleared his throat. There are some outstanding medical bills that weren't covered, and the insurance company is being difficult about the long-term care coverage. Mom leaned forward, patting my hand. We were thinking, since you won't be able to return to work right away, maybe you could move in with us during your recovery. It would be more practical. There was that word again. I pulled my hand away. What about my house? I asked, watching their reactions carefully. Couldn't I recover there? They exchanged quick glances. Mom's hand went back to smoothing her skirt. Oh, honey, she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. We had to make some difficult decisions while you were unavailable. The house was such a burden, all those expenses. So you gave it to Rachel. The words fell into the room like stones into still water. Mom's hand froze mid-smooth. Dad's fingers tightened on his watch. We did what was best for everyone, Dad said firmly. Rachel needed a proper home, and you were, well, the doctors weren't sure. Weren't sure I'd wake up. I finished for him. So you decided to strip me of everything I'd worked for? My house, my belongings, even grandmother's plates. How did you? Mom started, then caught herself. Alexandra, you're getting upset over things that can't be changed. What's done is done. Right now, we need to focus on these medical bills. I reached for the tablet Jenny had left on my bedside table. You mean these medical bills? With a few taps, I pulled up the documentation Jenny had gathered. The ones that were fully covered by my insurance. The same insurance policy you used to pay off the house before transferring it to Rachel. The color drained from their faces. Dad started to speak, but I held up my hand. Let me show you something else. I pulled up the security camera footage. This is from 2 days after you got power of attorney. That's you, Dad, carrying out my grandmother's antique plates. And here's Rachel, a week later, selling them at the garage sale for $50. You had security cameras. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. I'm full of practical surprises. I switched to another clip. Here's an interesting conversation between you and Rachel. Would you like me to play the audio where you discuss how to transfer my assets before I might wake up? Dad stood up abruptly. Now see here, Alexandra. Everything we did was legal. We had power of attorney. Obtained under questionable circumstances, I cut in. My lawyer is particularly interested in how quickly that paperwork went through. And the insurance company is very curious about how their payments were redirected. Your lawyer? Mom's voice rose an octave. Alexandra, we're family. You wouldn't? Family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Family doesn't steal from someone in a coma. Family doesn't sell their grandmother's heirlooms for pocket change. Family doesn't, my voice broke slightly, family doesn't pray for their daughter to die so they can take her house. Their faces showed they remembered that conversation. Another damning moment caught on camera. We need you to sign some papers, Dad said, changing tactics. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. There are still some outstanding matters. More transfers, more theft. I pressed play on another video clip. This one showed them in my home office, rifling through my files, discussing offshore accounts. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? That I wouldn't fight back? You raised me to be practical, remember? What do you want? Dad's voice was cold now, businesslike. Everything back. The house, the insurance money, every penny you transferred. And Rachel moves out. Immediately. That's impossible, Mom protested. Rachel settled in. She's redecorated, she's planted a new garden. She has 24 hours. After that, I release everything, the videos, the documents, the proof of fraud. To the police, the insurance company, and Rachel's company. I'm sure they'll be very interested in how their rising star participated in defrauding an unconscious woman. You destroy your sister's career, Mom gasped. Like you tried to destroy my life. They left without signing their papers, Mom in tears, Dad's face set in angry lines. I waited until the door closed behind them before letting my own tears fall. Jenny found me like that an hour later. Without a word, she sat on the edge of my bed and held my hand. They'll never forgive me, I whispered. No, she agreed quietly. But you'll never forgive them either, and you shouldn't have to. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Rachel, faced with the evidence, moved out in 18 hours, leaving the house a mess of modern furniture and half-finished renovations. My parents, realizing I wasn't bluffing, transferred everything back with minimal legal intervention. They even tried to buy replacement antique plates, but some things once broken can't be fixed. My recovery continued. Every day I grew stronger, worked harder, pushed myself toward independence. The doctors were amazed by my progress. But I had motivation they couldn't understand. Every step, every painful therapy session, brought me closer to going home. The day I finally returned to my house, Jenny drove me. The garden was ruined, the walls painted in cold modern colors, the floors scratched from Rachel's furniture. But underneath it all, I could still hear the house talking to me through those familiar creaks. It'll take time, Jenny said, watching me run my hand along the wall. But we'll bring it back to life. She was right. Over the next few months, as I continued my rehabilitation, I also rehabilitated my home. New roses were planted, walls were repainted in warm colors, floors were refinished. I couldn't replace my grandmother's plates, but I started my own collection of antiques, each piece chosen with care and purpose. My parents tried to reach out several times. Cards at Christmas, messages through relatives, even a tear-filled voicemail from Mom about healing the family. I deleted them all. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes. Rachel, I heard, took that partnership position and moved to London. She sends the occasional email, clinical and businesslike, never mentioning what happened. I don't respond. The clinic reopened with Jenny's help. My patients, many of whom had waited for my return, came back. There's something powerful about healing others while healing yourself. Yesterday, I sat in my garden, watching the new roses bloom. They're different from the ones that were here before, but beautiful in their own way. A hummingbird visited, hovering near a blossom, and I thought about how life finds a way to continue to create beauty even after devastation. One of my patients asked me recently how I stayed so positive during their rehabilitation. Some injuries, I told them, aren't visible on the outside. But every scar, seen or unseen, is proof that you survived, that you're stronger than whatever tried to break you. I understand that now in a way I never did before. The betrayal, the theft, the loss, they left scars deeper than my accident. But they also taught me something valuable. Sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones you need protection from, and sometimes the most practical thing you can do is fight for your dreams. The security cameras still record, backed up to that same cloud server. Not because I'm afraid of another betrayal, but as a reminder that truth has power, that evidence can speak louder than lies, and that sometimes the best revenge is simply reclaiming what was yours all along. Last week, a young woman came to the clinic, recovering from a car accident. As I helped her through her exercises, she asked me if it gets easier, if the pain ever goes away completely. Not entirely, I told her honestly. But you learn to work with it, to build something new around it, and sometimes what you build is stronger than what was there before. Looking around my restored home, at my thriving practice, at the life I've rebuilt, I know this to be true. The house still creaks in the same places, still catches light in rainbow patterns through the stained glass. But now those creaks tell a different story, one of loss and betrayal, yes, but also of resilience and recovery. Mom sent another card last week. "Family is forever," she wrote. "We can't change the past, but we can move forward." I placed the card in my filing cabinet in a folder marked evidence. Some things can't be moved past, can't be forgiven. Some betrayals cut too deep. But as I sit here in my garden, watching new life bloom where destruction once reigned, I realize that maybe that's okay. Maybe some bridges need to stay burned, some distances need to remain uncrossed. Because sometimes the family you're born with isn't the family you need, and sometimes the most practical choice is to choose yourself. The roses are different now, but they're mine. The house has changed, but it's still home. And I'm not the same person who first fell in love with those creaking floors and stained glass windows. I'm stronger now, wiser, more practical in ways my parents never intended. Tonight, I'll sleep in my own bed, in my own house, surrounded by the life I've rebuilt. And tomorrow, I'll help another patient take their first steps toward recovery, understanding now more than ever that healing isn't just about mending what's broken. It's about building something new from the pieces that remain. Because that's the thing about betrayal. It can break you, or it can remake you. The choice, I've learned, is entirely practical.